The base is dropped on the latest edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Monday. It's November 4th, starting a new week. It's the first off-season week for Atlanta United, so if you guys have not been with us in previous off-seasons, things get a little different in the off-season. This one's still an overreaction Monday, though, because there are things to overreact about, or underreact about, or on par react about. All are fair game when we're talking about the U.S. U17's at the World Cup. It was a very short trip to Brazil. We'll get into that. We'll talk about maybe why that was and what needs to change to avoid that happening again. Silly season is picking up all around MLS. There's still one match to play. MLS Cup will be played in a sold-out CenturyLink field on Sunday as the Sounders host Toronto FC. We'll start to talk about that as the week goes on as well, because it is a really important game, I think, in determining, as MLS Soccer did earlier this year, who will be the next LAFC. I think it's really the question is who will be the next Toronto or Seattle, because these are the teams that 3 out of the last 4 MLS Cups. I mean, you have to give whoever wins this, because they'll have 2 of those 3 and 2 of the last 4. You have to give them their proper place, and they're the pace setter. You know, instead of anybody else, they're the ones that have done this for a consistent period of time. So who is it going to be? We'll talk about that and start to preview it as the week goes on. But lots of other things to get into as well, and you guys can join that conversation on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. I'm Jason Longshore. John Nelson is hanging out over there.
Check.
And we've got a lot of things up on the network from the weekend if you have not checked all of them out. John's been a little busy catching up with interviews and all kinds of different types of interviews. You want to run it down real quick?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to get this cross section. Friend of the network, Austin Deleuze, finally announced his retirement out of USL Championship. So once North Carolina FC's season was over, decided to ring him up and sit there and, ask about the why and how you doing and how you feeling about it and what's next and memories and not sticking to sports and things like that. So it was a wide ranging conversation, and it was a fun one to do there. And also, when the NPSL adds teams, and one of them is in Lewis Martin's footprint, you have to go chasing after that one. And so the folks who are behind Huntsville Football Club, now North Alabama SC, and so they'll be joining the South Division come the upcoming 2020 season. And so we got to catch up with President and Board of Directors Brian Foy and find out the why behind it, their expectations, joining into the NPSL, all that kind of stuff. Then, by the way, Jason, we do have an official invite from Jay Heaps when we do the SDH tour to come to Birmingham and hang out with the Legion, because President and GM Jay Heaps was on with us.
Always
and good. He's said, you guys can come over, you can see what we're up to and all that kind of stuff. So it was good to catch up with Jay and in his new role in Birmingham. And then obviously with USL League One season coming to a close, their postseason awards are out. And we got to catch up with Dallas J, who was named League One Goalkeeper of the Year from our friends at the Greenville Triumph, and the League One Defender of the Year, Tormenta FC's Connor Antley. So it was a big 5 interviews that came across the pipeline and came out this past weekend. So it was fun to get that cross section going this week.
Yeah, and we've still got Charleston Battery updates coming as well, and that's one that the the publishing date's been pushed back a little bit because of the news last week about the ownership change, and had a pretty good idea that the stadium move was going to happen, but the ownership change was somewhat sudden. So we'll get a fully comprehensive update on Charleston, and that'll be coming your way here soon. Also had an interview that John conducted with Jen Hildreth that was part of our Women's Soccer Weekly show. That was posted over the weekend as well, with talk about the NWSL Championship, but also the news late last week about the increase to the salary cap, the addition of allocation money in the NWSL world. Sam Kerr, it's not going to work for her. She's gone and probably going to go to Chelsea, was the latest from Stephen Goff of the Washington Post, but other clubs were still in play there. But there are other players that might stay in the NWSL because of this allocation money ad. We got into all of that as well. And we'll have another Women's Soccer Weekly coming up early next week after these 2 U.S. women's national team games that kick off the Vlatko Andonovski era Thursday and over the weekend. So lots of content coming, more on the way, but lots of stuff on the app and on your podcatchers if you haven't heard it yet. John mentioned the tour. Our date in Alpharetta is going to be pushed back. So Daniel Price, cross that one off. We'll be coming to you shortly. But the first show we're going to do outside of our Monday shows at the Brewhouse Cafe, because that's an every Monday thing. Come join us for soccer over there tonight. Oof. November 19th at Wild Heaven West End. Very new facility. I think they opened up in September. It's a really cool project in the West End with lots of different breweries and things. It's like an open container area. You can walk around from spot to spot. It's very, very cool. We're going to do a round table with myself, with Mike Conti, and with Kevin Egan to talk about just what our day-to-day is like in the broadcasting world, what some of the road trips are. I think Kevin has some takes about Mike's power rankings on road trips and stadiums and stadium food and all those sorts of things. So we're going to get into all of that. November 19th, it'll be at Wild Heaven. We will have an event page up on Facebook here today and other ways you can make sure you let us know you're coming. We want this to be a really big deal, because if we get big turnouts for these types of events, we can do more. And we get more potential partners, and we get more potential guests, and we can do more stuff like that to grow it and provide some unique content to you guys. So let us know if you can make it out on the 19th over at Wild Heaven in West End. It will definitely be an entertaining one. I mean, I've been party to these conversations just like at an airport while we're sitting around waiting to get on a plane with Kevin and Mike, and it's always fun. So we'll bring that to you guys, kind of unfiltered, just sitting talking about the season, about broadcasting, about all of it. It should be
SDH really unfiltered.
Basically, that's what we're looking at. If you're looking for places to watch the Champions League this week, and we'll be previewing all of that tonight on Soccer Over There, Brewhouse Cafe with, I think Nick counted last time, there were 7,042 televisions, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they've increased that number to north of 9,000 now.
Oh, okay. They keep adding them every day. It's crazy. We'll be hanging out there tonight from 6 to 8. You can join us. You can also listen live on the app on soccerdownhere.net and on Spreaker. All kinds of stuff going on right now, even in the off season. But we've got to start, and Patrick Sullivan kicked us off this morning with the question about the U17's. It was not good. It was not good at all. It was very, very, very bad. Patrick says the U.S. crashing out of the U17 World Cup was ... not good.
Not good.
Didn't get a chance to watch the match and was hoping y'all could assess Bello's performance. Also guessing not good. You'd be right. He wasn't great in this one. The whole package is where I have an issue here. And there's two different sides of this that I think we have to keep in mind. There is what happened with this team in Brazil. Actually, there's three sides. There is that. There is this specific team in these specific games. What happened? there is the big picture, and I know a lot of people already jumped to conclusions about, it's the Development Academy's fault, it's MLS's fault, blah, blah. There is the overall development of better players in the United States. That is another issue. And the third one is don't overreact to U17 results. And that's a big one because it's no guarantees that these players go on to be the best in the country in 5 years, let alone 10 years. Let's go back 10 years, shall we? Let's
Surely.
go back to the 2009 U17 World Cup. So let's do the math. We're talking about 16 and 17-year-olds playing in this. So that would make them 26 and 27 now. Okay. Let's pull up the U.S. squad from 2009 and just run through it real quick so you get a sense of what we're talking about. Captain was Perry Kitchen. Perry Kitchen, LA Galaxy, played in Scotland for a bit, came up with DC United. Okay. Very, very solid professional. Jack McInerney was on this team. He is now playing in the NISA. Eric Zavaleta was in this team. He is a backup center back for Toronto FC. Juan Agudelo, who is still one of the most enigmatic players to ever come through a U.S. program. I still think he's more talented than he's been able to show, and I don't know if that's coaches. I don't know if that's him. I don't know. It's been kind of baffling. But he was part of this team. Will Packwood was the only player with an international club. Will Packwood was with Birmingham City at the time. And you're probably asking, who is Will Packwood?
Right.
He had a number of injuries that derailed his career. Made his first team debut 3 years after the U17 World Cup in the League Cup. Played in the championship, suffered a severe leg injury in January of 2013, never came back. He was training with a few different MLS teams after his contract ended in 2015 and never could find a spot. Injuries happen. I mean, it sometimes it's bad luck. And Packwood's one of those guys that if he hadn't had the injury, could he have been a center back playing in the national team? Yeah, I mean, he was trending that way. It's just impossible to be able to tell you yes or no. Spencer Ritchie, FC Cincinnati. He was a goalkeeper in this group. But that's about it. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Luis Gil, who is playing in the Czech Republic after time with RSL, time in Mexico, time with Orlando. Earl Edwards Jr., who is with DC after leaving Orlando, played a lot for Loudoun United. Jared Watts, retired. Tyler Polak with Greenville Triumph. Marlon Duran, who plays with Dallas City, I believe that's NPSL, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm just going right now from the Wikipedia page with the roster. You've got players who played in the U17 World Cup 10 years ago don't have a Wikipedia page. I mean, that's also true. Stephen Jerome, who I don't know if he is still playing, honestly. He was with the Fort Lauderdale Strikers for a while in the NASL. I don't think he's still active. That's 10 years ago, y'all. Like, this is not easy to do. So you look at that roster, too, from 10 years ago. Juan Agudelo was with the Red Bulls. Keith Cardona, goalkeeper, was with the Red Bulls. Cardona, I think, last played for Indy 11 in 2017. Outside of those two and Packwood, you're talking about a team that was all youth clubs. McInerney was with Cobb SC at the time. You had guys playing for West Pines United, the Chicago Magic, Crossfire Premier up in Seattle area, FC Pride, Real SoCal. That was 10 years ago. And that team didn't do as badly as this one, first off. But what's the goal here? The goal is to produce players for the first team. So that's the big picture. That's the development side. That's that middle topic that we'll keep coming back to. Let's get to the first topic, just about this tournament and just about how these games went. So Rafael Vicky was hired early this year. He is the only full-time youth national team coach in the program right now after Tab Ramos left. He was willing to move to Chicago, which was part of the demands for coaches. Came up when we talked about the national team senior manager as well. He was willing to do it. He had never coached a national team program before. He'd never coached in the United States before. He had success at Basel. He had success with Basel's youth teams as well. But he had never coached in a national team environment. He had never coached in the United States. The biggest thing that jumped out to me watching the game with the Netherlands, watching bits and pieces of the other games as well, the team never looked comfortable. They never looked inspired. And they played way too conservatively. They looked like they were potentially being overcoached. There wasn't any personality in the group. There's questions about the individual decisions in the group, too. Like, George Bello didn't start the first game. Why? George Bello only got forward a couple of times in the 2 games he played. Why? Because you're taking away one of the top elements of his game. If you're wanting to play George Bello in a low block defensive setup, he might not be your best choice. Because the great things about Bello is when he gets forward and creates problems for the opponent. And he can defend, but he's not a conservative defensive left back. It's not who he is. Why didn't Giovanni Reyna start against Japan? I mean, you lost the first game. You can't afford to be looking at 180 minutes at that point. You lost the first game. You need to get more than a scoreless draw out of the second one. And yes, Japan's a good team. Japan, this was a tough draw. Japan was the defending Asian champions. The Dutch were the defending European champions. But some of the decisions were honestly just strange to me in this tournament. And the lack of confidence and the lack of personality was a big part of it. And just the fact that they looked so flat against the Dutch in a must-win game. I have to look at the coach. Doesn't take the players off the hook, but also I'm not going to be crashing down hard on 16 and 17-year-old players who many are playing for the first time. That might be the coach calling in with his rebuttal.
I think it is, actually.
We'll let that go to voicemail. We'll hear from him later. It's a big problem when you have a team look the way it did in this. They didn't look sure of themselves. They didn't look motivated. And who do you look at in a situation where it is a youth national team playing, and that's what you're seeing from the outside? I think you have to look at the coach and the staff. And there was talk coming into the tournament that after Tab Ramos left, that Vicky's being groomed to be the U20 coach and groomed to be the youth technical director. All that's got to go out the window now. Doesn't mean he can't, but there's got to be some answers as to what in the world happened in Brazil, because leave the other side out of it where people think like, oh, it is a team that is playing professionally. It's the first time you've had every team in a professional setup, every player in a professional setup. We talked about that with 10 years ago. You had, a couple. Now you've got everybody. That doesn't guarantee you winning anything. Nigeria has won this tournament more than anybody else in the history of the tournament. That hasn't translated to a senior World Cup. It's not simple. 16 and 17-year-olds change physically. Injuries happen. Sometimes the best kid at this age is somebody who developed early. They're stronger, they're faster than everybody else, and then everybody else catches up. So this is no guarantee for later success. You can't look at it that way. But you can look at the individual results here and say, what went wrong? And for me, it's that lack of inspiration, and that's why I have to look at the coaching staff. U.S. Soccer, add it to the list. It's another thing they've got to do, and that list is pretty long at this point. Yeah. But They better go out and hire the right youth technical director first. That is job one. And then hire the coaches underneath. But you've got to get that technical director. You've got to have an idea of what you're doing here from a scouting perspective, from a communication perspective with all of the academies. You've got to do a better job than this because Vicky apparently didn't get on the same wavelength with his players. And that's a huge issue. So you let coaches go that were there. I mean, good point from Michael Tala at Soccer America. This was the first world championship since John Hackworth left, who took the team to the quarterfinals last U17 World Cup. The other 6 youth national team coaches that had been in place before Carlos Cordero came in, they're all gone. Sean Sakiris and Dave Vandenberg both coached this group before. Vandenberg had him as U15s. He coached him as the U17s for a little bit before Vicky came in. Sakiris had them with a U16 group that's kind of an in-between age group. But they had these guys, got more out of them. They're not with the program anymore. And now you have basically taken a youth national team program that I think Tab Ramos had in a pretty good spot. They were getting 2 knockout rounds at the U20s. They were, after one blip, qualifying at the U17s, and kind of patchy performances. Okay, that's okay. The U20s are a more important competition. U23s weren't working. That was under the senior national team leadership. That was beyond Tab Ramos. Felt like Tab Ramos was doing his job. It came a time to move on for him. I don't think U.S. Soccer could have kept him. Don't get me wrong. He needed to go on and be a manager at a senior level to see what he could be. But they have to hire somebody to replace Tab as the technical director first. And then they got to hire the rest of the national team staff. Like, Vicky's the only one. That's the only youth national team coach. That's it. There's nothing below him. Get it done, people. Because no, they're not developing these players. They're not a club. But they are part of the process of making a better senior national team. And that's a huge problem too, remember? So now you're just, I don't know what they're doing at this point. I really don't. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know what Ernie Stewart's doing. Is he going to hire a general manager first? Why did he get bumped up and now there's no general manager? So now you don't have youth national team coaches. Now Tab's gone. You don't have a youth technical director. Like, get on it? Maybe? It's just a thought. Nothing. So all of that leads to this, which this performance gets blown up and maybe pulled out of proportion because of everything else going on. You know, the 2015 team, for example, Christian Pulisic, Tyler Adams, part of that group. They got 1 point in the tournament too. Like, in a vacuum, going out in the first round of the tournament doesn't mean everything's terrible, blow the whole program up. It's the way you went out and the way the program is taking you into it that means blow the whole program up. And actually, you don't have to blow the whole program up. It's already been blown up. There's nobody there. There's nothing to blow up. So
You've
I don't know
got
what
ground zero already.
Basically. Like, go hire somebody. Go get it done. Hire the right person as the technical director and let them go do it. Stay out of their way. Just go get the hire right, or somebody who wants the job, like, go bang on their door and say, hey, that job that you seem to forget exists, can I have that? Like, something? Ugh.
All right. Questions from me. When it comes to the U.S. Soccer Federation, how much validity is there in the notion that they're only going to hire coaches willing to relocate to Chicago?
Stupid. It's a stupid idea. It's a stupid thing. It makes no sense. Because why? Why should they relocate to Chicago? How many national team camps, and youth national team camps are very different than the senior national team. Youth national team camps will be longer. You can do them more often. You're talking about players who are not playing as key members of their professional club yet in a lot of cases. So you're able to bring them in and have them for a longer period of time. How many camps have been done in Chicago? I think it's 0.
I believe the bupkis would be the word that comes to mind, yes.
I might be wrong. There could have been one at some point, but not often. They're usually out in Carson. They're usually in Florida. They're going to be in Kansas City here coming up. I mean, if you're going to make the guy live somewhere, why don't you do it at the training center that you just built with Sporting Kansas City? Like, I don't understand. So the Chicago thing makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't think that's as big of an issue as it's played up to be. I have not heard of anyone saying that they will not take the job because they have to relocate to Chicago. If that comes up, I think it's a more important issue. But it's a dumb requirement.
And also from the Woitala article, and this is Woitala speaking, this isn't me. U.S. Soccer dismantled it, took only one action to reconstruct it, hiring a coach from a nation with an unimpressive soccer history, zero experience in American youth soccer. It's
the last part that's the issue. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not going to throw shade at Switzerland's soccer history. I have the issue with someone coming in who played one season with Chivas USA and has spent
like
some
5 games or something
coaches
before he got injured or something.
Yeah, I mean, he was there. I don't care. Injuries happen, but he was there. And then he went back to work in Europe. Like, he doesn't understand what these players are dealing with, and more importantly, he had no national team experience. I mean, this is where, for example, someone like a Hugo Perez would have made a lot of sense.
Yes.
Because he had worked his way up. Because, look, it's a national team's different than a club. We've talked about that with the senior team a lot. It's a different set of difficulties. It's a different, combination of things going on. It's not easy to do. You need some experience at it. So having someone work their way through the U14s and 15s and 16s to get those experience running camps, to get those experience looking at players, then putting them in matches, seeing how they respond to instruction, all those types of things. The U17 level, you have a World Cup, and you're on the world stage, and you need to show well. The U20 level, it's a even more competitive level, and there's even more expectation because you have guys who should be playing significant minutes at a professional level at that point. You're just throwing random people around, I mean, John Hackworth has had success with this. He's done this. He knows what it's like. He has gotten results at the U17 level. He's helped prepare players. He's done a great job. All right, you're going to lose guys who come through like Tab, like Hackworth. Hackworth has been back and forth with national teams and club teams, but guys are going to go take a regular club job because that's day-to-day, and coaches generally like to work with players day-to-day at a club level and develop over a longer period of time. Okay, who's next? That's my biggest issue with U.S. soccer is there is no strategic plan. If you've worked in any organization, any business, any nonprofit agency, anything that is run well, you have a strategic plan. Even if it's not some 50-page document that you paid consultants 6 figures to do, you should have an idea of where you want to go. You should have an idea of where you are, what you need to do, and where you want to go. U.S. soccer doesn't seem to have the most basic of basic things. And until they have that, this is how it'll be. This is what it'll be. I mean, and look, every country has this happen with their U17s from time to time. Italy's never finished higher than 4th in the tournament. There's plenty of other major powers who never do anything at the U17 level. There's plenty who have down generations. There's plenty who have good generations and get bad results. Those things happen. That's not the issue here. The issue is that U.S. Soccer has no plan. U.S. Soccer doesn't have a youth technical director now. They don't have a U20 coach. They don't have any other coaches outside of Vicky who did not perform at a good level here. And you're stuck. And you need to start making moves yesterday. And I don't think you're going to see any changes because you don't even have a general manager, which was a new role that you created last year that you've already kicked the person upstairs from, and now he hasn't replaced himself. What are you doing?
The word adrift comes to mind.
And there's no excuse for it anymore. The points about after 2017, Sunil Gulati steps down, says he's not going to run again. He didn't step down. He said he wasn't going to run for president again. You have the first contested election in a long time. Carlos Cordero comes out of it. All right. You have to solidify the bid for the World Cup coming. That's a big deal. Okay. Those things, yes, they're real. Yes, they slowed things down. Yes, they took a lot of attention. 100% I agree. Don't know why you couldn't have worked on other things or appointed people to work on other things alongside. But anyway, I'll take that at face value. You hired Ernie Stewart last August. You finally got Greg Berhalter in place, and we've seen how well that's gone. You haven't done any of the rest of it, though. You know, you have Jason Kreis working part-time to get you to the Olympics, and he's taking interviews for other jobs because he's working part-time. And he's also at a club, Inter Miami, who isn't going to move him up. Like, he's not going to be the head coach there. That's already abundantly clear. It feels like he took that job because he needed a job, and he's there, but he wants a bigger job. All right? He's interviewing for bigger jobs. Okay. If he goes to RSL, now you're out of a U23 coach, and you don't have anybody to put in that position because you don't have anybody, period. Like, there's no bench depth. You got nothing. And you've done nothing to change that. You had to know that that was temporary. You had to know that Tab Ramos was going to be considered for potential opportunities because he has been pretty much every year, and he's interviewed, and that's been known. And you haven't hired anybody at the national teams below that. I think the last U19 coach was Brad Friedel. He went to New England a long time ago. There's no plan, and there's no excuse for why there isn't a plan anymore. You had an excuse for half of 2018. It's almost the end of 2019, folks. Have you heard of Indeed? Indeed.com, Monster.com, whatever.
LinkedIn.
Anything. Networking. Ernie Stewart knows people, I think. Like, even just getting somebody in these positions on a temporary basis. Like, on a basis to say, hey, show me something. Maybe you'll get the job. We're going to be talking to people, though, so you better show me something. It doesn't feel like there's any of that going on. And you get this situation where this result is going to get blown up bigger because of the entire dysfunction. This result doesn't mean U.S. Soccer is adrift. This game, this tournament, doesn't mean that. It's all of it that means that. You don't get adrift with one youth tournament that goes poorly. That's not the case, and you can't operate that way. But my fear is that people will sit there and look at it from inside Soccer House and say, it's one tournament, blah, blah, blah. It was a really good roster. They didn't perform. We'll figure that out. We'll keep moving forward with where we're at because you're not anywhere. I don't think they're going to look at it in the greater scheme of things. It's not as simple as just freaking out over this tournament. There should have been freaking out happening when Tab left. There should have been freaking out when you didn't have any other national team managers underneath at the youth levels. There should have been freaking out a long time ago. That's why you get this to a degree.
Now, my next question has to do with Vicky and whether or not he should be retained, invited back, kept.
Can't
Do
answer
you look
that.
at this?
I can't answer that because I'm not there. I don't know what his work is. I don't know, what he's doing like in training sessions. I don't know what kind of instruction he's given the players. I don't know if the players aren't performing or he's not being clear or he is overcoaching them. It looked that way. It looked like they were not comfortable on the field, and that's something that I think you do have to look at the manager at. But I can't say without seeing his work up close that no, he can't come back. The problem is, so far, this is what we've seen. He did about what you should do at the U17's in CONCACAF. They came in second to Mexico. They beat the teams they should beat. They qualified. Job done. And then they looked overmatched here. And that's an issue. You did have a tough draw. I mean, Japan and Netherlands, two teams that won their regions. Okay. All that's well and good, but it doesn't look good for him. But I can't say, no, he can't come back because you're not seeing the day-to-day with him. But I don't know who's looking at the day-to-day anymore. I would assume that Tab was. I don't know if Tab had hiring and firing power. I don't know where that sits now. And these are the bigger questions that are, okay, who gave him, what was his directive? What was he there to do? What was Vicky there to do? Was he told he needs to go win the World Cup? Well, if he was, then whoever came up with that idea is crazy, and then he failed. Was it about playing a certain way? Okay, did he accomplish that? That didn't look like much of a system. Like, what jumped out to me about it wasn't that they were playing capital T, capital S, the system, blah, 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 that even Greg Berhalter's gotten away from. That's an easy thing to jump on. It didn't look like that. It didn't look like there was a system. That's more of the issue. It looked like the system was don't get beat easy. It was be conservative, don't risk anything. And look, at a senior national team, at a senior World Cup, that's a different conversation than a U17 World Cup. I don't think U17 should be coached to play that way, not in a group stage. They should be playing the game. It should be open. You get to a final and you're overmatched and you have to do something tactically, okay, sure. But you should not be limiting players at this stage. And I look at it with George Bello. Bello's strong points are going forward. And when you're not, either he's not going forward, which doesn't seem to fit every other time I've watched George Bello, or you're holding him back from going forward. Like, something's not right there.
For me, the more that I was looking at this tournament, the more the Matias Almeida philosophy and the Matias Almeida quote kept popping into my head about playing and having fun and, having a system that's fun and having joy and those kinds of things. And the reason I asked the question about Vicky was because if you have this perceived lack of inspiration and you have this result and you have what appear to be unmotivated, disinterested, lackluster performances, how much of a leash does he get going forward with this result? Or is Vicky regarded as this result in a vacuum and then building from here with future results to come up with a case study as to how long he's going to be around?
You shouldn't expect anybody to be around that long in this point. One, I mean, that's not the way the world works. Like, how many managers, whether it's a youth job, whether it's a pro job, whether it's a national team job, whether it's a youth national team job, it's very rare you see people that are around for this long, extended period of time. That's not how things work anymore. And especially at the U17s. I mean, you should be wanting to move up to the U20s. So you shouldn't be expected to be around for a long period of time. I don't know what his directive was. And that's just what I come back to, is I don't know what the job was. You go into a tournament with an expectation. at the U17 level, your expectations should not be win the tournament at all costs. I mean, you no. It's about the experience for these players. This is their first taste of this. The hope is that this group, which is very talented, and this group with more professional experience than any group ever in U.S. soccer history, learns from this and doesn't allow this to be a negative. Giovanni Reina's at Borussia Dortmund. Alfonso Ocampo Chavez is with Seattle, and we've seen him play in the USL Championship, and impressive player. Ricardo Pepi, we've seen him in USL League One with North Texas, impressive player. Gianluca Busio played a lot for Sporting Kansas City this year, impressive player. Danny Leyva, very impressive player. Bello, very impressive player. Joe Scally with New York City. Dome Tarrant's always been very high on him. Very impressive. You've got talent. You've got a lot of talent. Will all of them make it? I don't know. Probably not. But you should be getting more of them making it, and this should be that first step along the way. I hope this negative step doesn't affect them in a bad way. That's the concern after this. You had plenty of guys in this team who have gotten Major League Soccer experience, who have gotten First Division experience. Need to see more. Need to keep seeing more, and these guys have to move on from here. And that's going to be what's next. For Vicky, I mean, it didn't look good from the outside. I don't think he should be that next in line for the technical director and U20 guy. I don't think he showed enough for that. So now what? Don't know. Don't know if it's hire a general manager first. Don't know if it's hiring a youth technical director and then giving them the resources to go hire people. I don't know if they haven't hired people because of a money issue. I don't know if they were waiting on leadership to push things forward, to make decisions. I have no idea. But it's not okay, and it leads to results like this, and it leads to questions that arise from results like this. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. If you guys have questions, tweet them at us at Soccer Down Here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 4th. It's not a happy overreaction Monday in the American soccer world after the U17's crashed out of the World Cup. Hopefully it'll be a happy overreaction Monday next Monday for our friends over at Oglethorpe University. They advanced in the quarterfinals of the SAA tournament, and John Aiken has kind of laid down the gauntlet here for everybody. Friday night, Berry College come into town. It is the SAA semifinals. It's a doubleheader. You can see Millsaps and Center in the first game, Oglethorpe and Berry in the second. The attendance record at Oglethorpe is 1735, and that was against Berry a couple of years ago. He wants to break that for this conference semifinal. Last year, the semifinal between Oglethorpe and Berry was bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Oglethorpe won in sudden death overtime. It took a goal, I think it was the 88th or 89th minute, to send it to overtime by Oglethorpe, and then they ended up winning the thing. Crazy, crazy game. We've talked about it a lot. It's a team that I really enjoy the way that they play. They have 10 seniors this year, and John wants to send them out the right way, get back to the NCAA tournament. They've got to win the conference tournament, likely to do that. So he is requesting the presence of Atlanta soccer fans on Friday night. I think if you are looking for a game, this will be an intense game. This will be a well-played game. This will be a fun game to come out for. Lots of families are coming out for it. It's going to be a big deal, so we'll be talking about it a lot this week. Hopefully, we see some of y'all there. If you can't make it for some reason, you can watch on GoPetrels.com with myself and Jessica Charman on commentary, but hopefully we see a bunch of y'all there, because these programs, this type of growth, it's big for the game across the board, because I've seen some of the questions on Twitter, and we're going to get to those in just a second. When you start talking about coaches and you start talking about youth and developing players, these guys at Oglethorpe, for example, who were not super highly recruited kids coming out of school. Some guys went on to D1 and then decided, you know what, I'm not playing a bunch here. I'd rather go back closer to home and play more and get a great education, but also play in a program that I'm learning. And John has done a great job of developing not just players, but coaches, and puts a lot of them to work at FC Brookhaven, which is a youth club that is growing and growing. And other guys go on to coach at other clubs. Coming and playing in a program like this and getting that experience of how to play in a progressive way and how to develop, and then getting opportunities to develop, whether you're doing camps and clinics that these players do or coaching in local clubs, it's a big part of that overall development ecosystem. And you want to see better coaches come up with your, not just, I think we all focus on the results for your 16 and 17-year-olds, your 18 and 19-year-olds, whether it's a state cup, whether it's regional competition, national competition, but you want to see better coaches working with the 8-year-olds and the 7-year-olds and the 5 and 6-year-olds, because that's where the foundation is built. That's where the important progress happens first. And you've got to have players who understand how to coach those age groups and understand what's needed, what maybe they didn't get when they were a kid, but also what's needed for those players to go on and play, whether it's at a top youth club, whether it is at a professional level, whether it's at a collegiate level, with just maximizing your potential. So that's another part of why I support Oglethorpe's program and what they're doing. Those guys who come out of that program, and the women as well, who go on and coach, it's very, very important that they learn and pass that on to the next generation, because then everything takes a step up in quality.
Getting back to the discussion that we were having with the youth national team, Daniel Price, other than being somewhat down this morning, he is thinking that perhaps Michael Parkhurst would make a great youth national team coach or director, perhaps.
This is the problem with that. He has no experience. He just finished playing. It's not how it goes. It can't go that way, because then you're learning on the job. And and it's not fair to the coach in question, whether it's Parkhurst or anybody else. I mean, take any of these great players that just retired, DeMarcus Beasley, Nick Raimondo, Chad Marshall, go down the list, Tim Howard, and throw them into a high-profile coaching job. It's not fair to them. They don't have the background to do it. Look at Tab Ramos and look at his career as a coach and the progression that he went through. He didn't step off the field as a player and go straight into coaching the U20's. He went to a club in New Jersey and started coaching kids. He founded a club, I think after he got a little bit of experience, NJSA. Then he went to the national team program to coach. He's moved up that ladder, but he said, when he was ending his career in 2002 with the Metro Stars, and he started talking to coaches and said, this is what I want to do. What should I do? He said it. The advice that he got was not to go take a pro job, not to go take a high-profile job. Go work with kids, like young kids, like away from everybody, and learn how to do it. Figure out what your voice is as a coach. Figure out what your approach is, what matters to you, what you want to see in your team. You're going to lean back, of course, on coaches that you had that shaped you. And that's why I mentioned it with Oglethorpe, because those are guys who are getting good coaching. They're going to lean back, at least at the very beginning, on lessons that they learned from John Aiken, from coaches that taught them. A guy like Michael Parkhurst is going to lean back on lessons he learned from Frank DeBoer, from Tata Martino, yes, from Greg Berhalter, from his coaches in Europe, from Steve Nickel. He's going to lean back on all of that, especially early on when he's still figuring out who he is as a coach, if that's what he wants to do. You don't want to throw somebody in while they're still figuring that out into that type of job. They don't have the experience to do it. That's why I mentioned it earlier that progression is important. You need to have someone come in and work after getting experience outside of the program, work in the U14's, the U15's, organizing those camps, running those camps, knowing how to get the most out of those camps, and then move them up the ladder. Dave Vandenberg would have made a lot of sense moving up the ladder. Sean Sekiris would have made a lot of sense moving up the ladder. These were guys who had been there and done that with the younger groups. It would have made a lot of sense to move up to the U17's and then eventually to the U20's. Well, they're not there anymore. And I don't know if it was the Chicago thing or what, or you just wanted to go hire somebody else, but, I think it's too big of an ask to ask a player who just finished playing, and I don't know if that's the route he wants to take. First off, that's the most important thing here. But second, you're setting him up to fail by throwing him into a situation like that. How many managers do you see go straight from the playing field, turn in their jersey, put on a suit, and have great success? There's a few, but it's very rare.
Yep.
You've got to put in the work and learn who you are as a coach. Even Jason Kreis, for example, in MLS, because he's probably the highest profile situation like that, where he retired with RSL and started coaching the next day. The opportunity came up to take over, and he retired as a player on May 3rd and was announced as the new coach of Real Salt Lake in 2007. He won MLS Cup in 2009. He took them to a CONCACAF Champions League final in 2011. He took them back to an MLS Cup in 2013. That's incredible. And he's struggled since. He was at a club that he had been at and helped build as a player from day one. A little bit of a unique situation. Outside of that, it's very difficult. Ben Olsen is one who retired and joined DC staff as an assistant under Kurt Analfo, and Analfo didn't last his first year, and Olson was the interim, and then they couldn't get anybody else to take the gig. So then Olson took it over, and he's been there ever since. Has he had amazing success? He's had some. I think he hasn't had much to work with either. So it's not easy to do that. I wouldn't want to put Michael Parkhurst in that situation.
And I think that players are going to want to develop, if coaching is their track, if that's something that they want to do. I think that you're going to have individuals sit there and say, I'd like to develop a style. I'd like to develop who I am.
Not necessarily. You're going to have a lot who are going to want to take the first job that's given to them. That's not the point. It's not to say that a lot of players are going to say no to this. It's what I'm saying is that you shouldn't take it, whether you're the player or the federation or whatever entity it is that's hiring. That's not what you should be looking for in your hire. That's not what you should be looking for your first job. Some will still take it. There's plenty of people who take it because it's a job and it's offered to you. And
right.
It's hard to say no to. That's not the point. The point is, don't take it. Don't get stuck into that because you don't know who you are as a coach yet. Go learn how to be a coach first. Tab did. There's plenty who didn't. Tab did, and I think it served him well and will hopefully serve him well in Houston, although that's still to be determined. He did well with the U20s. This is a very different kind of job. We'll see how it goes. He could do a great job and not have the players and kind of in the Ben Olsen situation. He could do a poor job and national team stuff might be better for him. Working with young players might be better for him. I don't know. There's no guarantees in this game. How many times do you see a great manager at one situation at a club win things, huge success, go somewhere else, awful? It's like, what happened? Did he forget how to do his job? No, it's just not easy.
We've got some stuff from Katie Weaver that has to do with the USL Championship and MLS. I figured we would save that for the second hour. Matt Wagner has some thoughts about transfers and things like that. But at Frank Marrow has some stuff as well. So we've got some other stuff dealing with other topics other than coaching.
Yeah, I think we've run this one into the ground. I think we've said everything we can say about the U17's. It's a short-term issue.
Hire people.
It's a short-term issue. It's a medium-term issue. It's a long-term issue. All of the terms are issues, and that's a big problem if you're U.S. soccer. And fingers crossed that they realize that's a problem, and fingers crossed that they hire people, and fingers crossed that they give them the tools to succeed, and fingers crossed that they, I don't know, get a clue. That's where
fingers crossed that they get stuff figured out.
Yeah. That's about how I feel at the moment. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and get into all the other stuff, because there's a lot of different things to talk about on this Monday, November 4th. We'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 4th. 6 days away from MLS Cup. Seattle hosting Toronto. We'll preview that as the week goes. Potentially Josie Altidore available for Toronto. The big news Friday was that match is officially sold out at CenturyLink Field. There are still some tickets that have been held back. Toronto's allocation and other allocations that MLS has. There could be a few more tickets made available, but it's sold out. And that's a very cool thing. Back-to-back, huge crowds for MLS Cup. This is a good thing for the league as a whole. Let's get into some news and rumors and things that are floating around right now, specifically about MLS first, because I know there's a few questions about some of these. Juan Fernando Quintero has an, quote, irresistible offer to come to MLS.
Of course he does.
And this caught everyone. Well, no, I don't know if I'd say of course he does. I mean, there's plenty of great players who are linked to things, but this is a little bit beyond that there is an irresistible offer that he might not be able to resist. And that would mean he would be leaving River Plate and coming to MLS. He's been chased by clubs in the past. Chicago had been linked to him very closely a couple of different times. Anything's possible right now. When we get through this list of players, just to talk a little bit about who is being linked at this point, it feels different than it has in the past. I'm not ruling anything out. There was some talk that maybe there was a $30 million release clause on him. There could be. That doesn't mean that you can't pay less and negotiate a transfer. That just means the release clause is, I don't want to negotiate. I'm going to pay that, and we're done here. And most clubs, if you do any kind of business, are not going to start there. You're going to start and say, oh, $30 million to get it done. We'll give you 15.
Yeah.
And you start finding a number that makes sense. So that's basically like the price in the window at the flea market, and you can negotiate from there. It's like you go on eBay, and if there is a
make
buy
an
now,
offer for.
Well, more like this. There's a buy now, and then there is a make an offer or make a bid. I'm not going to start with the buy now. I'm going to try to get it for cheaper. So I don't know about that $30 million release clause, first off. That I don't know. That's not official. I think it's been hinted at. River got him from Porto on a permanent deal in January. He had been there on loan before that. Wasn't a huge outlay. So I believe if River got, let's just say 15 for Quintero, they would be making about $12, $13 million in profit. And River is not Boca. River is not loaded in money. They're not in a great financial position. So, and I think they also have to be realistic that Marcelo Gallardo could be leaving any time because he's doing that good of a job. And you might have to rebuild a little bit. It's a lot better to rebuild with money, because they don't have a ton in the coffers to rebuild if they don't bring in money. So Quintero being sold by River Plate, I don't think it's crazy. What the price tag is and where he goes, we'll have to wait and see. Here's a couple other players, just to keep in mind, that have been linked to MLS over the last couple of days. Adam Lallana, out of contract, June 2020, 31 years old, receiving interest from MLS in China. I think China's interested in anybody with a pulse.
Yep.
But he's out of contract. He can sign a pre-contract in January. He is playing. He's had some injury issues, but he is playing right now. I don't know if Liverpool would be willing to let him go in January. But if you want him in the summer window, you could go sign him to that contract, and he finishes out the year, and you bring him in. Or then you could sign him to the pre-contract and say, well, what's it going to take to get him now? There's a bunch of others. We've talked about it on Soccer Over There quite a bit. Tottenham has like half their roster out of contract in June. So those are all guys who, yes, you could see potential interest from MLS. Here's another wild one. Sergio Aguero. You're like, what? Reportedly, there is a clause in his contract, this is according to Teise and others, that he can leave Manchester City on a free in June 2020 if it isn't to a European club, if it is somewhere else. Does that mean he takes it? We don't know. But if you are a club outside of Europe and you're like,
hello, Miami,
I don't have to pay a transfer fee and I could get him in June? Hello, anybody. You'd be stupid not to be looking at that. That's what we're talking about. There's also interest in Tyler Miller, reportedly, according to Hercules Gomez, Tyler Miller, goalkeeper LAFC, going to Portugal, which means you have a 37-year-old Portuguese goalkeeper, Beto, who is receiving interest from LAFC due to that situation, and potentially from Orlando, which, okay. This is according to AS in Spain. Darwin Quintero could be leaving Minnesota United. He posted a goodbye, thank you kind of post to Minnesota. Remember, he was reportedly going into an option year, $1.75 million. The club was undecided at the end of the season. Maybe they've made that decision. $1.75 million, if that is the option, and you are another club in MLS, that has to be enticing to trade for his rights. That has to be one that seems like a valuable move to make. I think he's worth that. If you have a DP slot and you can get him in a trade, that feels like a move that somebody might make. On the managerial side, there's really not any updates about New York City and Dome Toronto. There's not any updates about Orlando past the Oscar Pereja potential interest. There's not any updates in Montreal, period. And there's nothing out of RSL since the reports of Jason Kreis interviewing for the manager and GM role. So those are going to be big movers and shakers, first on the managerial side. Then I think all of them are potentially movers and shakers in the transfer market. And you're going to have a lot of things that could be moving around in said transfer market.
So this is why we call it the silly season, and this is why we go over everything to the extent that we do, so everyone can sit there and look at the landscape and be as informed as possible when it comes to possible and or probable ideas. But the Quintero one went to the top of the ladder for me.
Right. It's just barely getting silly now. I mean, we're not even to like
season 80 over yet.
We're not even to slapsticky like Three Stooges stuff yet. This is just mild silly.
Remember the boat show, people. So that's where we are. That's where we are, kind of in day one of the almost silly season.
Yeah, it's like day -5. Just wait till Monday of next week when there is a trade window that opens up in MLS in the afternoon. Soccer Over There next Monday could be complicated with MLS trade window being open. And then everything else. I mean, you're going to start to hear more and more about options being declined, options being picked up, players announcing that they're leaving, players saying goodbyes. It's going to get very weird over the next week or two. Get ready for it.
So do you want a silly season question, or do you want a letting go question?
No, I'm feeling silly.
Jorge B. Silly season question. What are the immediate needs of the team? Do we need more depth since next year we have Champions, U.S. Cup, and I'm assuming they want to avoid the same issues with injury players we experienced this year? Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
I think the depth was good this year. I don't understand some of the people trying to say that the depth was bad this year. You're not third in the league if you don't have good depth. Can you always improve your depth? Yeah, but it's always a work in progress, because when those depth players step up and play well, then you have to make decisions. Are they going to be more than a depth piece? Are you going to be able to convince them to stay as a depth piece? Are they going to want to move on and be more than a depth piece? Not easy. That's a lot of puzzle pieces you're trying to fit together. That's what makes Carlos Bocanegra's job very, very difficult. You have a lot of decisions, I think, to make first on what you have in-house. And not just for 2020. And this, I think, is the most important thing when these things start to pop up. You're not just thinking about, okay, there's an option on Julian Gressel for 2020. There's an option for Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez for 2020. And these are according to reports. Yes, you trigger the option that they're back in your uniform in 2020. But then what? Because then they're out of contract. Are you going to sign them to a new deal? Do you want them to be there long term? Are you going to be able to find the number that makes sense for them to be long term? What do you have coming up that you worry about blocking anyone long term? Who do you have in your network outside of the club that you would like to acquire and bring in long term? It's not every decision is made in a vacuum. And that's what I hope that, we'll be trying to stress. And I hope that we start thinking about it from that sense, not just, I like this player, sign him. That's all. It's going to get complicated with all of it. So just be ready and be aware that that's where you're at. I think first you've got to make those decisions before you can get into what's needed. Because are you going to sign Julian Gressel to a long-term deal? If you are, okay, you're counting on him for an extended period of time. That's going to inform some of the way you play, shape-wise. It's going to inform what other options are made in terms of, all right, if you're going to do that, are you going to play 3-5-2 primarily? Okay, if you're going to play 3-5-2 primarily, what does your center back situation look like? With 3 center backs playing primarily, you need depth for 3, not 2. It starts to affect other decisions. It's a trickle-down effect in that way. And can you get the number to work? Because then you have to think about the salary cap portion of it. That's why none of this is easy, and that's why you have to think big picture in every decision. I'm not even going to get into what you're looking at from the outside yet until you make those decisions internally. And we'll run through it really fast. I know we did this on Friday, but I think it's going to be something we have to do on a regular basis with what's coming up as announcements start to get made. What we think we know at this point, and none of this is 100% certain because you don't know every contract length. What we think we know is Ezequiel Barco under contract through 2022. Franco Escobar under contract through 2020. Joseph Martinez under contract through 2023. Eric Remedi under contract through 2021. Miles Robinson under contract through 2023. I think we can safely assume that Pity Martinez is under contract because you went out and paid that transfer fee for him. You put him under a longer-term contract, I would assume. Okay, we'll include him even though we don't know exactly how long. So that's your players that you know are under contract. There are options that you know about on Gressel, on Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez. That's according to Doug Robertson at the AJC. We know Jeff Larentowicz is out of contract. He would be eligible for free agency. There are others that we think have option. Oh, Florentin Pogba, option for 2020. Doug said back in September there was an option for Tito Villalba in 2020. So those are the options we think we know about. I would assume that there are options on Brandon Vasquez. There are options on all of the homegrowns that have been signed. I would think all of them are coming up to options unless some of them have been signed in new deals. Carlton and Goslin would have been finishing year 3, and then the next wave would have been finishing year 2 under contract. I don't know those situations, but generally it's 2 or 3 year deals with options at the end. You're never going to not have an option at the end of that kind of deal. I would think Vasquez was under a similar type of signing, even though he wasn't homegrown. Essentially, he's a young player. You want to have an option at the end. You're not going to let him be out of contract. Dion Pereira, we don't know. Brendan Moore, we don't know. Justin Merrim, I think there's been some reports or whispers that this was his last deal or last year under contract. Don't know about an option going forward. Kevin Kratz out of contract. Alec Can out of contract according to Transfermarkt. He's 1 year short of free agency. He would go through the reentry process if he doesn't come back. Heineman, according to Transfermarkt, contract is up in June 2020. You've got to make the decision on the loan to bring him back or sign him to a permanent or loan him for 6 months and let the contract run out and then sign him. I don't know. I think he'll be back because you paid a good bit to make that loan happen. Gallagher, on loan at Aberdeen through the end of this year. I would assume he is under contract for 2020, but that hasn't been reported. And Mikey Ambrose, according to Transfermarkt, contract's up at the end of 2019. Same with Mo Adams. So that's what we know right now. Breck Shea out of contract is the other one. Jose Hernandez posted a goodbye message on social media. I would assume that he's out of contract or an option wasn't picked up on his contract if he's posted that. That's what we know so far.
Which lends itself to Daniel Price's question, wanting to know about the reason for the letting go of Jose Hernandez. Hadn't seen him with the first team loan to the Twos. Who jumped past him, and is this a likely outcome with Kevin Kratz too? Seems like there will be a lot of faces leaving.
I mean, why he's not coming back? He didn't play for the first team. Yeah, this is a big thing with the Twos that is part of this progression. If you're not going from playing games with the Twos to playing games with the first team, you're not going to stick long term. You can't waste those spots with the Twos on players that you don't see with a first team future. That's a very important element of this long-term development. It's something that we've talked about it on Soccer Over There when it's come to Barcelona and some of the issues that they've had. They've struggled to move players from their academy through their B team into the first team. It hasn't happened like it used to. Some of it is they've held on to guys too long. Guys who came through their academy, and whether it's just, you really want those guys to succeed, you misjudge, you think they're going to make it, they might have had injuries, you want to give them another chance. Well, then they're blocking young guys coming through that could be better next. You have to make tough decisions in this. It's hard. It's very, very hard. And that happens even at the academy level. It's very, very hard because everything is pointing to playing for the first team. And if Jose Hernandez, been here 2 years, hasn't played for the first team, I think that answers the question. That's why he's not coming back. Doesn't mean he can't be a good professional. Doesn't mean he can't be a good professional in this league or a different league. It means he's not seen as a first-team player here. And as a left back, primarily, I think you're looking at George Bello as the reason why. Because George Bello is projected and has shown you enough so far that he will be the guy going forward on the left side. So that doesn't leave room for Jose Hernandez. They tried him as a central midfielder with the Twos, and I thought he was all right. I didn't think he was bad there, but didn't show enough to say, all right, let's go another year with Jose and see if he can turn into a central midfielder. It wasn't there. If you're in an option year or it's out of contract and you're going to make a decision if you want to re-sign them, is the progression, have you shown enough to stay If the answer is no, you can't keep it. It doesn't help the player to stay in a situation where there's no opportunity to move forward. It doesn't help the club. It's a tough decision, but it's the life.
Alex Krupp said that Doug Robertson mentioned over the weekend that if there's a work stoppage, MLS teams may not participate in CONCACAF Champions League. Alex says that seems like kind of a big deal. That's a big deal, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal. I do think that is a big, strong piece of leverage for the players. And I think they will likely use it. And they should. Because you've got 4 clubs in the United States who have big expectations in CONCACAF. You're not talking about Houston being in CONCACAF and happy to be there. You're talking about Atlanta, LAFC, NYC, and Seattle, all clubs that want to win this thing. They don't want anything to get in the way of that. That's a tool for the players to use in this negotiation. They'd be silly not to. Is it enough? I hope that that's just part of the reason why this thing gets done and we're not having these questions in mid-January. Because that's a horrible look for MLS when you're on the international stage and you have teams who might not participate. You don't want to have that be a might not. So I really hope that that's just part of the reason why a deal gets done sooner rather than later.
Frank Marrow says it'll be interesting dynamics in the CBA. Clubs like Atlanta United, LA Galaxy, and LAFC and others no doubt will benefit from players getting a better deal. Others are focused on spending as little as possible, not so much.
And that's when all this started. I always thought that one of the major points in negotiation wasn't going to be the players and the league. It was going to be within the league, within clubs and owners that want to do more and clubs and owners that don't want to spend more or don't want to spend much more. So I think everybody is pretty much understanding they're going to have to spend more. So, okay, how much? You've got some that want to spend a lot more, and you've got some that want to spend very little. Very little, much more. You don't want to spend much more. So that's going to be the bigger discussion for me, is the internal MLS discussion between owners as to how much does this grow. That's more of the issue than what the players are requesting, which, I mean, from what we've heard so far, like, there's nothing crazy in the request. There's nothing that feels completely out of line. I mean, I'm sure there's wiggle room on how many years a player has to be in the league for free agency or how old they have to be. There's always give and take there on those types of things. And I think it will open up more free agency opportunities for players at the end of this negotiation. That's stuff you're going to go back and forth on. But the general idea that there needs to be more investment in the player side of the league, yeah, I think everybody's on board with that. It's just how much.
And then Percy Herrera along those same lines with the CBA. He's wanting to know about a Juanfer and PT reunion. He understands it might be wishful thinking, but he doesn't see the jump to Europe right now for Quintero. I know that there are DP slots available, Percy says, but the new CBA could allow for more. Selling Tito could free some dollars up, but Gressel needs to get paid. So much to think about.
Well, you'd have to have another designated player slot because there's not one that you can buy down right now. I mean, it's Pitti, it's Barco, it's Joseph in those slots right now. And salary plus the amount that was paid in transfer fees for Barco and Pitti, like, you can't buy those down. So part of the CBA, you'd have to add a fourth designated player slot for that to even be a possibility. I don't know if it's a good possibility because if you remember back at River, there were plenty of times that Gallardo made the decision not to play the two of them together, to play one or the other and bring the other off the bench. So I don't know if you want to create that situation. I think you already have some of that situation to begin with, and we saw it in the New England matches. So I don't think it makes any sense in that regard, but how the CBA looks in terms of designated players and that type of spending, it's definitely a question. I think most who have been following it and have sources within either side are saying that they're not expecting an increase to the designated player situation. I think adding one more or adding a specific youth designated player spot would be useful and would not be too big of a jump. But it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. So I would say don't get your hopes up for that.
And then Katie Weaver in the queue has a USL Championship spinoff thought for her overreaction Monday. She says, so Nashville, watching them struggle versus Indy Saturday in front of a small, crowd, hard to believe they'll be in MLS next year. She predicts Nashville 20 will be Cincinnati 19 with fewer fans. Hashtag overreaction Monday. What offseason plans for squad upgrades are there? And she's glad for a drivable away match, though.
I think you always get in trouble when you look at these teams and their USL roster and then look to project that to MLS, because the leap between USL Championship and MLS is huge. And teams that thought they could bring a lot of players up generally fail. I don't think that's the case in Nashville. Like, there's a lot of guys in that team that will not be playing in Major League Soccer. And that's a complicated set of emotional circumstances for fans, but it's the fact. That's why you haven't seen a USL Championship team win the Open Cup. You haven't seen a lower division team win the Open Cup since 1999. MLS teams are better. And people will argue that and say, oh, well, but no, they're better. Like, just no, it's a huge difference. So their form in USL, it's two different things to me. I don't even look at that. The fan side, I do have some questions there, because it's also complicated when you're going into your final year in the lower division league, because you are trying to sell tickets to a product that is inferior to what you're about to sell tickets for. And you have to balance all of that. You have to sell deposits for MLS, and they're going to have to do it playing at Nissan Stadium for their first couple of years, which they won't fill because we're talking about, gigantic stadium. But can they do 30,000 in the lower bowl there? I think that's what they're shooting for. I think that's what they should be shooting for. And can you sell that and sell what you have currently going on at the same time without it being confusing? That can be hard. I hope that Nashville can match what Cincinnati brought off the field. That should be their number one goal for 2020. I do think on the field, Nashville will be more along the lines of Minnesota and Cincinnati in that they want to build for their stadium opening up in 22. And they're going to build in a slower way. And that's okay. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think Atlanta and LAFC have shown that you can build in a more aggressive way and have success straight out of the gates. But when you're building a new stadium, it is a little bit different conversation. And I don't know what the overall resource level of Nashville is. I know it's a lot, but how much do you want to spend up front on all of that, or do you want to stagger it over time? I feel like that's where Nashville's going. I don't know. The attendance was a weird thing in this one for me. I was a little surprised at why it was so small. I thought it would be bigger. And I don't know what the reasoning is for that. I don't know what the excuses are in that realm. I don't know if, it was cold. Okay. Yeah, but they are playing in a baseball stadium. That's not the greatest, so that has a factor. And I don't know, and John, maybe you do, when it comes to Nashville as a big league city, as a minor league city. You've had minor league baseball there forever. You've got the Titans, you've got the Predators. I wonder where soccer fits into that in the city's overall hierarchy. Are they going to be looked at on par with the Predators? I think that's where they want to get to, but can they be that straight away, or does it take some time?
And that's the problem. I mean, Nashville, the Preds, the first couple of seasons were god awful. And then it took time for them to get to where they are. And then they had front office change and coaching changes. And with that, the philosophy changed. And the owners, by their own admission, were not the richest in the National Hockey League. And a lot of times they were closer to the bottom of the salary cap floor than they were toward the ceiling. But what you've seen with popularity and winning and front office changes is you've seen investment in players. They brought in PK Subban before they traded him away. They've signed Kyle Turris to long-term deals. And so what you're seeing with players that they believe are quality players that are a part of their futures, they're signing them to long-term deals at market value. It's not something where they're trying to lowball players and have them in for short-term and turn things around. But if Nashville SC can get to the point where the Preds are right now, where the Preds are being marketed in Nashville as a hockey city with a music problem or something like that, trying to market themselves that way. It is a very popular thing right now, and winning has done that over time for the Preds.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where Nashville SC fits in immediately and how they capture the city's attention. Cincinnati is a high bar to shoot for, and I think that's where they should be shooting. Do they get there? It's possible. I'm not ruling it out. You do have to wonder, though, Cincinnati carried over that type of response in the city. Nashville is starting more from scratch.
Yeah.
Can that help you in some ways? Maybe. Because Cincinnati has also struggled, and Orlando went through this too, with people who were accustomed to success, albeit at a second division level. And maybe some of the mindset hasn't shifted to understand that, that doesn't mean anything. Nashville won't have that. It'll be more of starting from scratch. They'll be kind of honestly an in-between of the mentality that we've seen with the teams that have started from nowhere, like Atlanta and LA and Miami will, that you don't have any clouds of what's expected. You can be whatever you want to be. But compare that to Minnesota, to Cincinnati, Nashville, Sacramento will be in this conversation of teams that have been there, but been at a lower level. Now, how do they project to the big leagues? It's a more complicated process, I think.
Yeah.
Nashville's a little in between because they don't have as much of a history at the lower division. And
to the point that you were bringing up at the beginning of this discussion, it's like, all right, how many of the current roster will be a part of the MLS squad? And the emotions that are attached to the players that were a part of this run in USL Championship, fair number of them will not be around next season as the team moves to MLS. And that's just the economics of the deal. And that's just how it is sometimes when you're dealing with different aspects of your business. It happens in business all the time. And now it's Nashville SC's turn both on and off the pitch.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll get back into the Twitter timeline on the other side. Overreaction Monday continues right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 4th. Silly season almost upon us. Day -5 or 6 or whatever of silly season as we get ready. Every player who will be out of contract is being linked to MLS. Pretty much every other player is being linked to MLS. Things are getting weird in the MLS world these days. One of the... I don't want to say one of the biggest days, but a day that a lot of folks who follow the league look towards every year is when Forbes releases their most valuable teams list.
It's evaluation day.
Yes, and whew, they have jumped a good bit. Atlanta last season, in 2018, when the numbers came out, was valued at, I believe, $330 million. And we talked about the sales that were going on. We talked about how like some of the sale prices were far outstripping what the Forbes valuations were. And they talk a little bit about that in the article. But Atlanta United is valued number one in the league at $500 million. That's a huge jump in a year.
It's 2/3.
Yeah, and they are also well outstripping the rest of the league in revenue, according to Forbes. Now, Forbes doesn't have access to the books, but Dan Quartermanch of Major League Soccer, their executive vice president of communications, has said that these are, pretty good numbers to look at. Are they 100% accurate? No. But are they ballpark? Yes. You're talking $500 million valuation for Atlanta United, $78 million of revenue, and an operating income of plus $7 million. Okay. Really, really good numbers. Let's look down the list at some of the other valuations. LA Galaxy are number 2, $480 million, $64 million in revenue, which has to jump out and surprise you just a little bit when you look at some of the rest that are not getting to those types of numbers. They're also operating on the plus side. LAFC is next at $475 million in value, $50 million in revenue. That is number 3 in revenue as well. Operating at a -5 on losing $5 million essentially for the year. Not a crazy amount. I'm going to assume when you start to look at this stuff that the transfer fees that they have paid to come in, and you look at a Brian Rodriguez, for example, could be throwing that out of whack. And that's why it's fairly impressive for Atlanta United to be on the plus side with the transfer fees that they have paid out recently in Barco and Pity Martinez, but also what they brought in on the Miguel Almiron side. And that should be one of the main talking points coming out of this. And I wonder if it will be. Transfer sales being part of the market. That's why you see teams posting positive numbers. Even spending on transfer fees like Atlanta has, you're posting a positive number because you made a lot of money on the Miguel Almiron transfer. That allowed you to go spend more, but still post a profit. Seattle, break even on revenue, $47 million revenue, operating income of $1 million. Value number 4, $405. They were tied in revenue with Portland, which I think is pretty impressive for a market the size of Portland. They're valued at number 6, $390 million. They also posted a profit, $4 million. Toronto valued slightly ahead of Portland at $395 million. Didn't make quite as much. They also lost $19 million, according to Forbes. That would be the most in MLS.
Plus the exchange rate involved in that, too, going from Canadian to U.S. dollars and the devaluation of that currency.
Aha. And that is maybe part of everything when it comes to Toronto?
I would think so, yeah. And Vancouver and anything like that.
Yeah, and they're further down, 21 and 22 in terms of value, and both posted losses. Vancouver with a minor one because they're not spending as much. So there you go.
Because if my memory is right, I think the exchange rate is in and around 30 cents to the dollar.
Okay, then that's going to have an effect just doing business. So New York City and Chicago are next in terms of value. New York City 385, Chicago 335. New York City brought in $45 million. They also lost 16. A couple reasons why a big loss for in New York City. I'm assuming stadium.
Yeah.
Renting and cost of converting from baseball to soccer. That's got to be a huge chunk of that. They also spent on Eber. They have another Matrica. They spent a good bit on Matrica too. So that's two pretty big incoming transfers, and they didn't have any big outgoing. So the operating income number, like, look first at their transfer activity, both incoming and outgoing, and that's going to give you a good picture of why some teams are posting a $20 million loss. Look, it's not gigantic for Toronto, and obviously you have an ownership group that can handle it. You also have exchange rate factored in, but they're not making any big sales, and we talked about this when the Giovinco thing happened. You got a small amount for Giovinco. You got a small amount for Victor Vasquez. You had to go out and spend a lot on Pozuelo. I don't know what they spent on Benezet and Erickson Gallardo, but you've had to spend more than you brought in the transfer market, period. So you're probably not going to post a profit. Just how it is. DC United, number 9 in value, 330. Over 40 million in revenue, which is on the good side here, 41. And basically broke even, 1 million to the good on operating income. Sporting Kansas City, 325. That gets you to number 10 in the league in value, 43 million in revenue. That's a very high mark here. 1 million to the good. Chicago, I didn't get into revenue. Very low, 23 million. And a negative on the operating income side of 16 million. So that means they spent a lot. Well, you're also playing in Bridgeview. Well, actually, no, you didn't spend a lot. I take that back because 23 was your revenue.
Right.
You know, you spent 39. That's not absurd. That's not craziness. And you would think that Chicago, in the market they are in, should be able to make more money than the Portland Timbers. But you're nowhere near that right now. So that's a source that Chicago's got to figure out. A couple others that are relevant here. Orlando City, $295 million valuation. That's less than what they sold part of the club for. I believe it was valued in that sale when you start doing the percentages at around $500 million. They're valued by Forbes at $295, $39 million in revenue, which is pretty good. A loss of -1, so basically break even. Cincinnati newcomers valued at number 14 in the league, $285 million. Your bottom side of it in value, Colorado is the lowest, $190. Columbus next, $200. Montreal, $210. Vancouver, $215. Dallas, $220. In revenue coming in, your lowest are those bottom three, Colorado, Columbus, Montreal, all at 18. Vancouver at 20. Dallas is good, and this is a weird one about Dallas. So Dallas is decent on revenue at 33, but still listed as a -7. I don't know
how much of that is the development of the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame property and the revenue going into that, and then writing that construction off.
Yeah, that's a good question. That could be it. That would be the only thing that really makes sense because they haven't spent on transfer fees. It's their property at Frisco. I mean, they spend a lot on their academy, but not to post that. So I'm assuming that could be part of it, the stadium upgrades that were involved around the Soccer Hall of Fame stuff. The next lower ones on revenue are Real Salt Lake, which still posted a positive, which is very impressive on their income. They posted a +2, so it's a little more than break even. Philadelphia, $21 million. Both Philly and RSL posted $21 million in revenue, according to Forbes. Philly lost 5. Real Salt Lake made 2. San Jose, $35 million on the revenue side. That jumps out a little bit. Still posted a loss. I'm assuming some transfers could factor into that. Would be the main thing. And those are the things that jump out. That's a pretty big deep dive. Minnesota posted a -8 on operating income. Only revenue of 24 for Minnesota. That's pretty low when you.
I think Allianz has something to do with that. I would think.
On the loss, it could be. Only lost 8, which I mean meant that you spent 32, you made 24. So you didn't spend a whole lot. You just didn't make much, and that's going to be something Minnesota's got to rectify. Houston is kind of in that boat too. Made 23, lost 6. You're not spending a lot, but you're still not making enough. Like, you've got to adjust that. Now, for both of those, and let's take Houston, for example. You lost 6. Okay. You sell Albert Ellis, you should make that back.
Yep.
Like, done. Now, he wants to play out his contract and doesn't want to be sold. These are the reasons why you can't allow that to happen. Because there is your makeup. Done. You sell him, could get $10 million. You make money. You make money for the year. That's why when people start trying to argue so much about like, MLS is a stupid system, blah, blah, blah. If MLS starts selling more players like Atlanta did, if they start selling players and making money in these scenarios, those operating income numbers flip very quickly. It doesn't take much for them to flip in a dramatic way. It doesn't. LAFC, they sell Diego Rossi, boom, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they invest in the way that they do, because they plan to sell Diego Rossi for 15, 20. Done. The Vancouver one is a little surprising. They still posted a -5 with the Alphonso Davies sale, but I think a lot of that is backloaded money coming in. I think there were a lot of different, when he plays X amount, he gets this, win this, then this. That's the only way I think that one makes sense.
Well, and I will still, with Vancouver and Montreal and
Also,
Toronto, the first thing I will look at is exchange rate. And that'll be one of the things that I factor into transfers and salaries and operating revenue and all that kind of stuff.
It's a big article to dig into. I'm sure there will be lots of stuff being talked about with it. Forbes got into why they valued Chicago at $335 million versus the sale valuation that Joe Mansueto bought the team at, which was valued at $400. So a little different there, and some of that is projection moving back into Soldier Field and how much more money can be made and yada, yada, yada. Houston selling a stake in the team to James Harden and that valuation being at $425. But that included the stadium, and the Forbes valuations below are only for the team. It excludes stadium and real estate. So that answers our Dallas question. So it's just the team. So that's even more impressive when you look at an Atlanta situation. Like, that's straight up for the team itself.
And just the sheer number of Atlanta United in revenue, 15% higher than LA Galaxy. out of the blocks, and we're talking 78 million to 64 million, but still 15% clear of the field and 15% clear of your number two. And then 28 over 78, almost 30% more revenue than LAFC.
Well,
and you're still coming out on the plus.
You look at the two teams that came in 2015. I mean, Atlanta United made, according to Forbes, and again, this is not with access to the books, they made a little bit less than New York City and Orlando did combined. And those were teams that had a 2-year head start. You know, Atlanta United in revenue, Galaxy are in the ballpark, 14 million back. LAFC, 28 million back. Seattle and Portland both made 47, and Atlanta made 78, according to Forbes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you start to look at haves and have-nots and gaps forming. Look at those revenue numbers. Those are big because you have over, let's put 40 million as the cutoff right now. You have Atlanta almost double that. You have the Galaxy 64. You have LAFC at 50. You have Seattle and Portland at 47. You have New York City at 45. You have Toronto at 43. Sporting Kansas City at 43. DC United at 41. That's it.
Yep, 14 of the 24 below $40 million in revenue.
Yep, that's 9. Or is it 9? 10.
10.
That's 10 over 40 million in revenue. That feels like a bit of a gap, but then there's a gap within the gap. Like, that's the thing, is there's a gap in that group over 40 where you're talking about DC almost half as much as Atlanta in revenue.
Yeah.
It's going to affect how much you spend on players. That's going to affect a lot of different things.
And you add Colorado, Columbus, Montreal, and Vancouver, and that is $2 million less in revenue total than Atlanta United.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Atlanta's posting the largest revenue, the largest operating income, the largest value. All three, Atlanta tops it. Now, a lot of people will point to this, that operating income number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the plus side. Now, then you scroll down, you have another 6 that are within 5 million of it. You have a couple more at 6 million. You have 7. You have a couple 8s. So it's the ones that are, and Cincinnati's left out of that because they obviously don't have a comparison yet. And you don't have all the full numbers in yet. So in the double digits on losses, Montreal, 12, and that goes along with what Joey Saputo has said. New York City at 16, Chicago at 16, Toronto at 19. Toronto and New York City in the past, and maybe not as much going forward, and this could maybe factor into some of the things Dome Toronto has said about spending. They have spent a lot on salary. At times, they've spent a good bit on transfer fees as well. They have not sold. Toronto brought in Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, Sebastian Giovinco. 2 of them are still there. Giovinco was sold for, what did that end up being, like $2-3 million?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yep.
And they went out and spent a whole lot more than that on Pozuelo. So that's already a loss to replace to Giovinco. Whereas other clubs have brought players in to then sell them and make more money, like Atlanta did. Montreal, it's that simple. You sell a player. You start to make more sales like Balou, and it hasn't really worked for Balou, but you have to keep developing players and then moving them. You can cut into that very quickly. New York City, is that going to be the idea for James Sands? Potentially. I mean, that's how you keep feeding it. Of course, like New York City as well, their revenues, even at 45, I think have dropped because their tickets have dropped because people are not happy about the situation at Yankee Stadium. If things move on with the Bronx, like there's steps being taken, New York City is fine. And obviously, again, owners, they can sweat that. They're okay. Toronto, they can handle that. They're okay. Montreal, maybe not. And that's going to be a question for Joey Saputo. When you're only bringing in 18 and you're putting out 30, how long is that sustainable? If you put a better product on the field, I think that 18 number goes up pretty fast. I think they have a lot of room to grow in that side. And also, with all the talent they have been producing, and they've been producing a lot, they haven't gotten to that next step of making big money on the talent. That's something that has to happen. Chicago, it's a work in progress. And I think Mansueto buying it now, I think he understands that. I would hope so.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to change overnight. You got to get into Soldier Field. You got to capture that city again, and then we can see what Chicago can be. But interesting numbers. That growth on the Atlanta number and on the LA numbers as well. And I think Portland would factor into pretty big growth too on the valuation. I have to go back and compare numbers. All really good. The top end is really, really good. The bottom end is about where the bottom end's been. There are some troubling ones, and there are some really good ones. It's about what it's been as a whole. The average MLS team now worth $313 million. That's up 30% year to year.
Growth industry, babe.
Yeah, it is. That's why people are coming in and spending the money to get into Miami, to get into Nashville, to get into Sacramento, to get into Austin, to get into St. Louis, to fight to get in for number 30. You know, if you're going to spend $200 million, and Sacramento is, I think, reportedly around that, number 30 might be more, well, you're going to walk straight in the door and be in a good spot. And you grow it, you do what you should do to continue growing the value of that brand, you're in a great spot.
Monica Ruiz says at the $500 million valuation, Atlanta United's more valuable than half of the NHL. The Sharks at number 15 at 510, the Wild at 16 at 490. He says, I wouldn't have guessed that. I'm surprised, but I think it's cool.
That's wild. And as we went through in some of these other things, like Atlanta's a little different because the stadium is a very different situation. But let's take LAFC into it at 475 because they're in that same ballpark. LA Galaxy, 480. You're talking about stadium ownership. LAFC, I think, is probably the one that's in this the most. You take the stadium factor, because AEG and the Galaxy, it gets a little more confusing. And obviously we know with AMB and the Falcons and Mercedes-Benz Stadium and Atlanta United, it's all intertwined into a degree here. But LAFC, you're talking about the soccer team, you're talking about the stadium. You factor the stadium into it as well, and that growth, and that potential growth, and boom. That's where you're at. It's a boom industry right now. And even with those losses, none of those losses are obscene. None of those losses, the way MLS is structured, are going to put a team out of business. Not like Rangers, for example, in Scotland.
Oh.
Again, Rangers, according to the numbers that they posted, and they did the classic Friday news dump, according to the numbers that they've posted, they're trying to find, correct me if I'm wrong, £10 million to survive the year.
Correct.
Like, not to grow, £10 million to keep the doors open.
Yeah, keep the lights on.
That's the reality of a lot of the rest of the world with these clubs. That's not the reality for Colorado Rapids, Columbus Crew, Montreal Impact, Vancouver Whitecaps, FC Dallas, the clubs that are at the bottom in the valuation. That's definitely not the reality for Toronto FC, New York City, Chicago, in terms of clubs that lost the most money. You're even a Montreal, for example, who is one that I think you have to look at, and Joey Saputo's got to look in the mirror at what you do to change it. They're not going to go away. They're not going to miss their bills here coming up because of the way the league is structured. even with a club like that has struggles, it can turn around quickly. I mean, Rangers are going to have to sell players, like flat out, because that's the only way they're bringing in that kind of money to survive. And I don't know what they have that they can sell to get anywhere near that number. So then you're still begging for money.
Yeah, when you have paragraphs talking about sustainability toward the tail end of your financial statement, that's not the kind of stuff that you want to have.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. The boss, as the accountant in the house, is like, no, you don't want that.
No. It's fascinating that it's gotten to this point, and it's something that I think it shows that the route MLS has taken has been the correct one, and it's going to inform some of the CBA negotiation in that, because look, they're going to be able to point to say that X number of teams didn't, post a profit according to Forbes. It's not the true books, but you would assume that it's close to that. They're going to be able to point to things, but the players are going to be able to point to the valuations and the growth and say, yeah, but there is more money to work with than there's ever been. It's time to work together to get into the right position to take it to the next level. Because I think everyone understands that the way you get to the next level, the way MLS continues to grow, the way you bring in more money in the next TV deal, the way it continues to get bigger is by investing more and more in the players. Now, the Players Association... Yeah, of course. But the Players Association is caught in this a little bit because they have current members that, if the league continues to grow, will not be playing in the league. Because there are players playing in the league that, if you continue to bring in better players, they're going to get replaced. It's a fact of the situation. And that's what makes this a different type of players versus owners battle, because you don't have this as much in other sports. To a much lesser extent, the NBA and the NHL now, where, yes, there are international players that can come in and replace domestic players that make up the bulk of the union and the involvement in the union. But here, for the league to continue to grow, to make more money, to be able to give players more money, you're going to have to replace a lot of the members of the union. Like that's going to happen. When you talk about, players who are at clubs now and might not be brought back, that's part of the conversation, is that it is a worldwide market and there are always other players. So it's going to get complicated. This is all going to get twisted into a million different directions in the CBA negotiation and discussion. I'll be curious to see the reaction nationwide to this, because there's some numbers that jump out to you that surprise you a little bit. One update on a rumor we talked about earlier. Super Deportivo out of Mexico has followed up on the Mainland report, the Orlando City SB Nation blog, about Oscar Pareja in Orlando City. Super Deportivo has confirmed that Pareja has a formal offer from Orlando City that would see an increase in his salary. Pareja is asked to be able to focus on the Apertura campaign with Xolos before making a decision, and Orlando City has agreed. So Pareja is the target for Orlando City. They are going to give him the time to focus on the Xolos Apertura campaign, and then they will go from there. I think that is appropriate. I think that's the right move, because he is the best hire they can go get. 100%. With the relationship with Luis Muzzi, he's the guy that they need to focus on. Now, if it doesn't work, then you're going to be stuck and you're going to be behind the 8 ball, but he's worth the gamble, in my opinion.
Yep. I'm right there with you. I think that with his history in the league, with the relationships with the front office that he has in the past, I mean, that should be your number one flag planting, is chasing after Pareja.
Carlos Vela will be the MLS MVP. No surprise there. There's an announcement by Major League Soccer in Los Angeles today. No surprise. That's what should have happened. It's the same conversation we had last year about the record-setting year from Joseph Martinez. I mean, Miguel Almiron could have even been more valuable to Atlanta United than Joseph last year, but Joseph is winning that award. Same thing for Vela this time, but he is the most valuable player for LAFC and the league because of what he did in the campaign. He deserves it. An amazing year for him.
Check and double check, sir.
All right. Coming up later today, Soccer Over There, live from the Brew House. We are going to get into transfer situations. We are going to get into Champions League preview. We are going to get into what seems like a regular segment, racism in Italy.
Racism over there.
We are going to get into VAR, which also seems like a regular segment. John Nason saw your question. We're going to get into it on Soccer Over There. We'll probably rehash it a little bit in the morning. Just things popped up. We didn't get to dig into it this morning. And it's related to VAR in the Premier League specifically. So we will get into that this evening. And along with anything else you guys bring to the table, y'all know the drill by now. You come out to Soccer Over There, you have opinions, you're going to get on a mic and you're going to give your opinions, and we're going to discuss them. It's a fun back and forth. It's a fun time at the Brew House. So coming out with us tonight, 6 to 8 p.m., and we will see you then. If you can't make it, you can listen on the app live. You can listen later as a podcast. You can also listen at soccerdownhere.net and on the Spreaker platform. Couple things to add to the calendar. Friday night, Oglethorpe-Berry, SAA semifinals, NCAA D3, in-state rivalry. Should be a great match. Should be a huge crowd. We want to set a record. Spread the word. Come out and join us in Brookhaven for that on Friday night. And then don't forget, Wild Heaven in the West End. Myself, Mike Conti, Kevin Egan, telling tales about the Atlanta United season, what it's like to do what we do. We'll give you an inside peek at press boxes and press box food and travel and all the craziness that comes with calling these games. That's at Wild Heaven on the 19th at the West End location. So add that stuff to the calendar. Set a reminder in a few hours for Soccer Over There. Come out and grab some tacos or whatever you partake in at the Brew House. John likes the Caesar salad. He's a big fan of the chicken Caesar salad.
It's the only time of the week that I eat healthy.
Yeah, I like the fish tacos. They're really good. They're messy, but they're really, really good. So we'll talk.
Counteracts for me.
What's that?
That's what counteracts it for me, just messiness.
I just want something that's good. I'll deal with the messy. I'm eating it after the show anyway. So come out and join us if you can. If not, listen, we'll be back in the morning for Soccer Down Here. I'm sure there will be some more reaction to the Forbes list as that starts to make the rounds. And more rumors because the silly season is getting closer. We'll be getting ready for all of it. Thanks, y'all, for listening. Thanks, y'all, for chiming in. Until later this afternoon, much plati, y'all.
Much plati.